Hello. Guess who's back in the car? Not only that, I've got more Neville for you. Wow. We're back to manifesting miracles. I'm just going to read a small part of his answer from one of the questions. This is question 12. Talking about how, people into metaphysics and in general into spirituality, one could say, seem to lack, right? Us spiritual people, we seem to lack on the financial plane and on the plane of having sometimes what we need, seemingly. There's definitely this preconception that most of us have that spiritual people are going to be without a lot of material things or struggle to have them. And, the New Thought movement very much protested against that preconception and thought, said, no, you should have what you want. What you desire is good, which from like a Christian spiritual perspective is quite different than what we're taught growing up and, what a lot of like Christian religions taught in the United States. So it's a very different perspective. Anyway, the question is, why do people who work hard in metaphysics always seem to lack? And I'm just going to read part of the answer. Neville says, we must live boldly. We must go through life as though we possessed what we want to possess. Do not think that because you helped another, someone outside of you saw your good works and will give you something to ease your burden. There is no one to do it for you. You yourself must go boldly on appropriating what your Father has already given you. This, really ties in with yesterday's video, which I'll link above in case you haven't watched it. Just talking about how we have more choice, directive, and control of our behavior and our reactions and how we approach life than we usually think. We can act and approach life much more abundantly and appropriate our good much more effectively and have more of a choice in the matter than we expect. And this is a day-to-day practice. This isn't like something that's like esoteric and it's like I'm feeling abundant now and I'm abundant and I'm on this high hill. I guess it can be like that, but for most of us, it's more like working with our reactions, working with how we see the world and see ourselves so we genuinely feel more abundant. And that takes boldness. That takes a degree of self-confidence that we have to develop. It's like a muscle or a tool that takes practice to cultivate more and more, and you do get better and better at doing this. One could say that faith, a way of looking at faith, is self-confidence in yourself, in the tools you have in your shed, in your, the shed of your mind, your mental tool shed. How much self-confidence do you have in living boldly, in actually accessing the abundance within you? Recently, we were talking about some of Joel Goldsmith's work, and we hear the phrase God is my supply, or God is supply often. And Goldsmith says supply is an inner quality, It's not an external quality. It's a quality you bring out from inside yourself. In the same way that you could say that something like patience is an inner quality or humility is an inner quality. Supply, abundance, is an inner quality that you bring out. That is a difficult lesson for most of us to really grasp and understand and then apply. That's not something that it's like, oh, I'm going to learn about these principles and I just get it. This is the kind of work that takes years and is continual adjustments and practice, and it's humbling a lot of the time. humbling, and you work with yourself. And as I said yesterday, that Neville quote about we would be appalled if other people spoke to us in the way that we speak to ourselves and think so lackfully about ourselves a lot of the time. I hope that's not you. I hope that you are the exception. But from my time on this earth and working with others and looking at myself over the years, I can tell you that most of us think very lackfully of ourselves. And we have to learn how to think more boldly and act more boldly to appropriate this inner supply that we already have. And that once we do feel it more consistently and continuously, inevitably shows up in our life in better ways than we expected or even thought possible. But, that Goldsmith line that supply is an inner quality. It's not something you get. It's something you have within you, and you simply access it and bring out in the same way you would bring out patience or humility or whatever. That's a powerful way to look at this. And again, that's what Neville's talking about here. I'm going to read this paragraph again. We must live boldly. We must go through life as though we possessed what we want to possess. Do not think that because you helped another, someone outside of you saw your good works and will give you something to ease your burden. There is no one to do it for you. You yourself must go boldly on appropriating what your Father has already given you. Or in other words, you yourself must bring out the supply you already have within you that you just have not accessed. It's like, how people say, oh, you have all these creative abilities that you just never accessed or never knew were there. You hear stories like that all the time, like in self-development and self-help. It's like, this person, they never realized they had this. They never accessed this part of them until they were older, or maybe, you often hear it like they never accessed this part of them at all. Or it's like they were really good at, art or woodworking or whatever it may be. They had a real skill here, but they never really cultivated it because nobody necessarily encouraged them to cultivate it, and perhaps they didn't think they could cultivate it. A lot of this advice is having people encourage you to cultivate what you already have. And you already have supply on a deep level. It is an intrinsic part of being alive as a human being. At least that's what these folks are saying. And in my own life, I've seen that to be true time and time again. Not in a melodramatic way, not in a way where it's like, I'm going to win the lottery tomorrow or something like that. But like what you need, what you want is brought out. And the way it's brought out, you can't usually predict. But if you cultivate what within you is bringing it out, good things fall into your lap. And you're blessed with the abundance within you, without as well. You see it in your external world as well. I hope this makes some sense. This is pretty esoteric stuff, which again is why someone like Neville or Goldsmith is not necessarily the best place to turn when you're getting into these principles and ideas, and often is not the best place to turn even when you're very familiar with them. But if you want to get kind of far out and, mystical, esoteric, spiritual sounding about it, this is very interesting material. But like I look at this statement that Neville says a little bit differently than I did like when I first read it 8-9 years ago. There's something more practical, and I've realized more that there really is something within that can be cultivated and that we must appropriate. And that takes boldness and self-confidence. And that's not an overnight process. That is a process that, you'll be doing throughout your life. And pragmatically, it's very worthwhile to do that.